Shit's about to.
Hey guys, welcome back to the On Rack podcast. I'm Andrew Barry and I'm joined by my co-hosts Kyle Wilkes and Phil Viz. Before we get started today, I just want to mention I was at the Junior Nationals this weekend and I had so many guys that came up to me and said, hey, I love what you guys are doing with the new podcast. So I told them, hey, leave us a like, leave us a subscribe, share with your friends. I'm going to tell you guys the same thing. Please do that. It helps bump us up in the logarithm. Today for the show, we're basically doing a contest prep coverage of the Dubai Pro and a little bit of the China Pro. Kicking it off, Phil, you were the one that got the most coverage on this. What did you see and what did you like?
Well, the thing that stood out to me the most was that guy Edward, which I feel completely got screwed. And we're going to put up pictures in a second. But, the show ended up, going a certain way. Behruz actually won the show. Bonac was in second. I think Tonio was in third. Fourth place was...
Mofada?
Was fourth? No, it was Diesha was in fourth.
Diesha.
And then Rubio was in fifth, right?
No. Mofada was in fifth.
Oh, Mofada was in fifth. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yep.
So I thought, honestly, that guy Edward, that you could see him in the top left-hand corner. When I originally saw the results come out, I started looking through it. I'm like, maybe it's just a blurry picture and he really wasn't in good condition. Maybe he was off. And I'm just searching pictures like crazy. And every picture I find of him is on point. And I'm like, what the hell? I could have had him in second, honestly. I could have had him battling for the show. And I have no idea why he wasn't in there. And the only reason I can think is that they didn't, for some reason, they didn't want to give him a shot. They didn't want to compare him to the other people. Because then it makes it kind of blatantly obvious he belongs up there, So if you don't want somebody, in a certain part of the lineup, you just don't put him there. You don't give him the comparison. But I don't understand how this wasn't compared.
Yeah, you're saying that after they did the first call out, then they actually really looked at him. They were kind of embarrassed that they missed him, and they're like, well, we can't throw him in now because it would expose how much of a miss we had on the first pass.
But they did it at the last show with the Colossus Ken. He
Yeah.
wasn't in the first call out. He wasn't in the top five, and then they compared him at the night show because all the fans online went crazy. And then he made the top five, and he even made a video that said, "Thank you, everyone. Thank you, all the fans. I would not have been in the top five if you guys didn't go crazy and say something about this." But nobody really was. There was a very short window of the show. Nobody was really able to catch this. I don't think anybody has noticed it yet, but they will this week.
So I just want to point out that I predicted Behruz would come back-to-back and win this show. And I think I also mentioned on the show last time that the pictures that I posted, I thought he was, I'm not going to call it trolling, but he wasn't really showing his full hand. He was posting pictures that either had poor lighting, that didn't show the condition, or he was posting pictures that were 4 weeks old and giving his competition a breath of hope, thinking that they had a real good shot. And not to say that he walked away with it, because we do have some video here. Let me pull that up in just a second.
You know what I'd like to say real quick before you change the picture?
Yeah, what's that?
We can't see the floor of the stage, but I kind of feel like Behruz is a step forward, closer than everybody else. Doesn't it kind of look like he's a little bit bigger, a little bit taller than everybody else?
What does that tell you?
It's a strategic move,
Yeah.
Maybe that's the case, maybe that's not the case. I don't know. I'm just saying he looks a little different than everybody else size-wise.
Yeah.
This
Kyle,
is something that all bodybuilders do.
I think he looked phenomenal, right? I thought Bonac, who I thought was doing the show, we clarified after, obviously, that he was. We just weren't sure, so we apologize for missing that. But he always shows up in shape, right? Do I think this was his best look that I've seen this year? I don't think it was his best, but at the same time, I can't deny the decisions of the judges. Everything looked pretty good. I think I've seen Bonac a little bit tighter in the lower half, I'd say. He also looks a little dry in terms of not a lot of glaze on him. But overall, he comes in, he's Mr. Consistent, to say the least. So, I'm hoping you and I shut it down now for the Olympia.
Yeah,
body rest.
You and I both got front row seat basically to him at New York. Mm-hmm. Would you agree with me that he was tighter in the backside for New York, tighter and drier?
Yeah, I'd be interested to know if he was a little bit heavier for this show, or if it was just they did a different approach to test something.
Wouldn't you say also just the fact that he's been in prep at least probably 20, 22 weeks at this point to get to his fourth or fifth show, maybe even longer. I don't know how long it takes him to get into shape, but just the general fatigue, the general substance use kind of has a wear and tear of toxicity on the body. I think I don't know. Obviously, it was smart to do the show because he got a second place and a nice paycheck, but I do hope he shuts it down and kind of catapults the success he's had early in the year and brings that to the Olympia and brings his best look with just a little bit more rest and just maybe a little bit more game planning.
Yeah, no, 100%. And the interesting thing, I had a chance to talk to him the first time in person. He's a super nice guy, first and foremost.
Gentleman.
He had mentioned a lot of open guys, as you guys probably know, use CPAP machines and stuff like that. William doesn't, right? So he doesn't sleep very much at night. So for him to be this consistent and has a sleep schedule or routine probably like mine to where I don't ever get much sleep, to say the least, for him to look this good, I can only imagine if he was sleeping most of his career or if he continues to start to get some sleep in the future, what that might bring. But I think to your point, being in prep that long, continuously peaking, it's not easy. And I can't imagine, it's not like, there are certain compounds obviously going to be in play. He's coming to win. He's always a top 2 guy. So his body just is probably a little fatigued, I'd say.
Phil, what did you see in this picture? This is Beirut. Great back shot, but you pointed something out to me earlier.
I thought this was a phenomenal shot, but I think that there's a mistake going on here as far as the upper glutes. Listen, we can all see this. We're not going to sit here and pretend like we're not going to acknowledge the elephant in the room. The top of his glutes are completely inflamed and swollen. This is like, you can see, like the bottom half of the glutes are completely striated. The top half looks like it didn't peak. Like it just looks soft, inflamed, and puffy. So yeah, we got to put our gear somewhere, but I think he needs to move it around, or he needs to get better absorption. Maybe there's too much scar tissue in there. I don't know what his situation is, but I do think that you shouldn't get on stage with that blatant of inflammation in the upper glutes.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, like dialed and crispy right here, but then at the upper glute, it's almost like a boil coming out, right? And some of it's the way he poses it. But, as a take-home thing, what do you guys like to tell your guys in terms of gear? I know, we all cut probably the injectables on like a Monday, Tuesday, maybe as late as Wednesday if their body absorbs well and they never have any issues. But if someone is prone to like glute issues like this, what would you tell them? Where would you have them put it?
I like to tell everybody, what I do is with my guys in the closing weeks is I have them use backload insulin pins and then just put it up around the hip, like right above the quad. There's a whole area in there full of muscle that you could just, right in there, and you could just sneak it in there and you'll never see it, and you don't have to flex it, you don't have to pose it. There's no separation going on in there. There's nothing to show, and it's a very good place to hide it. But also, I'm backing down injectables as they get closer to the show. I'm lowering the tren dose even 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out. If they're ready, tren is a drug. I think people understand tren. They think it's a conditioning drug. They think, it's going to make me hard. It's going to make me this. It can make you retain water. It can make you not able to sleep. It can, it can cause anxiety. It can cause a host of other issues. If you have Masteron, Winnie, Halo, things like that in there, tren isn't going to make a bit of a difference on your conditioning. It can actually hurt your conditioning. Tren is actually a very strong anabolic, androgen, and anti-catabolic. So it's best when you're coming down trying to get peeled. But once you're peeled, you really don't need it that much anymore. You can leave a little bit in to retain muscle, but it's not going to have a marked impact on your physique. So I'm backing. I'm lowering the test at that point. I'm lowering the trend at that point. Masteron is staying where it is. Orals are in, and we're just trying to reduce the trauma to the body, reduce the inflammation. Because injections are trauma. It's inflammation. There's solvents in there. It irritates the body. Whether you feel it or not. So, I think sometimes we have like scar tissue in an area, so like we really don't feel the pain that much, but it doesn't mean there's not stuff going on in there. So I really try to minimize the injections as much as possible coming closer to the show. And this is why I like to use Masteron E instead of P, because I can do it less frequent and lower volume and further out.
Anything to change on that, Kyle, or do anything different?
I would say within a week of the show, I try to always stay away from the glute. So other than the volume coming down, let's just say there are some listeners that don't decrease their volume, right?
Yep.
Where would I put it? Areas that you've been consistent. You should always have a few sites, to say the least, right? At least 6 that you're rotating, whether that be each delt, the rear delts, the lats. Move it around. There are certain areas that as you pin as a competitor, hey, every time I pin here, it gives me an issue. So don't do that close to the show, right? Just use common sense. Ventral glute sometimes can be okay for people. For others, personally, if I were to do that, sometimes it started to interfere with my leg training. So it's not good, right? Just stay away from it. But yeah.
What do you guys feel about putting your gear in like your buys and tries, especially towards the end, to maybe just bring a little bit of a pop to them, a little bit of localized inflammation? We're not talking up until the day of the show. We're talking over the last 2 weeks, maybe up until a week before when you start really pulling the injectables, just to give a little bit of an inflammatory effect.
Go Kyle.
So I don't personally really recommend anybody fucks with their arms, not with that stuff. Let's just say other things potentially. But for gear, usually, again, if you're taking someone that's never done it before, I wouldn't say, hey, a week out, let's try to put in your bicep, because then you risk them getting injured, something like that. But the thought process is there. It's just I don't particularly oftentimes do that.
Or take it further. Instead of doing, because a lot of guys just load 3 cc's up and put it in the right cheek, and next time they'll put 3 cc's in the left. Instead of doing that, what I recommend is actually breaking it up and doing bilateral. And I actually grabbed this from Skip Hill like years ago. He mentioned it, and I'm like, that does make sense. That if you're going to be sore in a body part, why just be sore on one side? Like mitigate how sore you're on that one side, so you're actually feeling the same, we'll say pressure, soreness, whatever, if you're getting that from your injections equally on both sides. That way, if you're inflamed on one side, at least you're kind of inflamed on the other two, in a sense, and it's not so jarringly obvious that you just took an injection on that, say, right delt, for instance.
Yeah. I also think, regardless of the compound that I'm using, I always do everyday injections.
Same,
I administer things every day. So when some people do, I don't know, twice a week is like the old sip. You take test sip twice a week, DECA twice a week. Yeah. When you do that and you're taking a lot of it, now you're going to run into that issue to where you have to do bilateral injections regardless.
Yeah, for sure.
Honestly, like I won't even use something that's too painful or inflammatory anymore. I don't care what it is. If it starts to cause inflammation and pain and affect their training, I'm cutting it out. I'll try to mix it with something like an EQ or whatever it may be that kind of lessen the pain. But if there's no way to lessen the pain, I won't use it.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys do this particularly for females, just because it's so hard to measure certain, like let's say you have them taking testosterone and they only need 2 milligrams a few times a week, and it's really hard to measure that on an insulin syringe. I have them get some sterile oil, and then we mix it, run it through a Wattman filter to re-sterilize it and even cook it to, let's say we want to bring a preparation down to 25 milligrams per cc versus 100 for, say, test prop or something like that. And it's just much easier for them to be precise with the measurement, because I've had women, they send me back a picture of what they're taking, and I'm like, yeah, that's like 3 times what you should be taking. We got to take like a baby amount to get what we want, because labs will show what we need, at least for testosterone. But let me just show some of the other pictures here. What do you guys think of Miguel?
I honestly didn't think that he was in shape yet. He's got very, very big, round, full muscle bellies. Like, he could be phenomenal, but that just doesn't. To me, that looks like he's not in shape yet. That's not water retention on the inside of the glutes. That's fat. Yeah. Lower back. Towards the oblique region. That's fat. That's not water. Yeah. So like he needs to be tighter. And I guess this is why he wasn't posting back pictures up to the show. He knew he wasn't in shape from the back. So they've got to figure that out. And I think this guy has probably got like a myostatin deficiency or something. He's not at risk of losing muscle. Just diet harder.
Yeah. Yeah. His hamstrings are like the size of most guys' waists.
He's so thick.
Plenty of muscle. Needs to lose some body fat.
Yeah. What do you think about Nathan, Kyle?
So, as I said last week, I thought he would be. I know he was bringing some good conditioning, so I was happy to see that. His posing, he can be a little bit better. I think, and present himself better. Yeah. He got 4th. I thought he'd be 3rd or 4th, probably. Yeah. I think for him, again, legs continuing to get better, his back, but I think for kind of coming back, since it's been some time since he's competed, essentially, it's not a bad first look, I think. I think he can improve from here for sure.
Absolutely.
I think historically, Nathan's back was a little bigger.
You think so?
I think it's down. I think his back was down in size. I mean, he's like 42, 43 now?
I'm not sure his age. I can tell you in a second, though.
Yeah. While you're looking for that, I'm going to share a video.
I see 37 years of age.
Okay. We didn't talk about Tony. I couldn't find a good back shot of him, but he was right in the mix there. I think it was... You could make an argument that either Edward or Tonio, in my opinion, could have edged Bonnick out for this one for 2nd place. I would have had Edward. I agree with Phil. I thought just his package was amazing. But what did you guys think about Tonio with this look? This is for, let's see. He's already qualified, right? Yeah, he's already qualified for the other.
Yeah. See, I saw some pictures of Tonio, up close and whatnot, and I felt like from the front he was amazing. I feel like his backside, he was, I mean, just that's only because I'm familiar with his look. He was a touch flat from the back. But that's just because I'm familiar. Like, if anybody watching this, they're not going to look at this and go, oh, he's flat from the back. I'm talking about just like a touch. I'm nitpicking because I know how good he can be, But let's still, really, really phenomenal. And listen, in my opinion, I'd have put him over Bonac.
Yeah, me too. And I think he solved a lot of the abdominal issue. He's letting it out a little bit right here, but I always never liked when he's just standing there and his front relaxed, had a little bit of a turtle shell. And I think, obviously, when you're filling a guy up, you're going to run into that a little bit. But I think Beirut, clear winner easily. I don't know. How does he get better? What do you guys think?
Beirut, I mean, he's already been consistently improving and staying on track. I think he's got his formula down. I think he knows what he has to do. I don't think he needs any advice. I don't think he needs any plan. I think he knows what to do, and he's going to get it done. The question is he going to get a visa?
After this weekend, I don't think so. I'm going to be honest. And
he missed it 2 or 3 years in a row now.
2.
Yeah, he missed the last 2. So, yeah, I mean, it just sucks that, with what's going on internationally, it's going to affect sports, athletics, and whatnot. But, maybe his team's been working on it, knowing he was probably going to get a qualification months ago, because I know some of these things sometimes take 6 to 8 months. So, hopefully we'll see him, and we'll see Hadi at the Olympia this year.
Who got Hadi in last year? Because somebody pulled some strings somewhere.
He was listed as an employee of Evogen, so he got
really?
He got a work visa, Yeah, he got a work visa. So, all right. Let's move on to 212.
This was interesting.
Yeah, let's see. Here we go.
Because this kid is only 22 years old.
Yeah, let me pull his pic. There we go. One thing I'm going to say about pictures today, why does it look like even just regular cell phone pictures have a little bit of an AI kind of cartoony element to them? You get what I'm looking at here?
I know what you mean. I don't know if it's just the way the lighting is, so that with the camera.
Yeah, I think with the lighting and the new iPhone pictures, it kind of makes him look a little cartoony. But anyway, his name, I hope I don't butcher it. Nihat Kaya, does that sound correct?
I wouldn't even try it.
Yeah, okay. So he's Patrick Tour's client. He's been posted a lot. I'm going to say it's Nihat. Second place was Angel Caldron. Second place 2 weeks in a row. He was in the Open last week. This week he went back to his 212 home. Giuseppe Zagarella, another hard name to pronounce, in third place out of Italy. And then Mohamed Niem from United Arab Emirates. And then fifth place was Mahmoud Adel. I'm going to be honest, I don't really know Mahmoud, so I couldn't find any good pictures of him. But, Phil, what do you see about our boy Nihat?
He's just got such phenomenal structure. He's got, it's like a combination of shape and power, So, it's just I can't explain. It's just a really, really good look. These pictures don't do justice with the condition that he was actually in.
No.
And I noticed that he was a little taller in the lineup. I think he looks like he's 5'8", 5'9". So, I was texting his coach, Patrick Tour, and I was asking him, I was like, is this guy going to be open? And classic Patrick, he's like, he's got to get great at 212 first. We're not even thinking about that. I'm like, I knew that was going to be the answer, but I had to ask anyway. He won't, he's laser focused on the current objective and won't think anything about the future until he nails the current one. So I had a feeling he was going to say that, but I had to ask. But to me, he looks like he could eventually be open. Yeah. And he's got great development. He's got great shape. And Patrick told me this is only his 4th show ever in his life.
Yeah, some guys just have all the genetics. That's crazy, for sure.
I mean, maybe he's just a really, really hard worker and took listen, remember Evan Centopani? He turned pro and took 2 years off before doing a pro show. Some people just take their time and make sure that they're ready. Maybe he was one of those.
How do you explain Andrew Jacked?
Genetics.
Okay, there's one. We wanted to talk about the third place guy, just his potential.
Oh my God.
What did I do with his picture? Jesus, we got so many pictures.
I think that right now he's a victim of his quads. His quads are so good. I think I said to you, if we took a ruler and stuck it into his hip, his quad speed is probably a foot off of his hips.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, this is an old picture, but this shows his shape, which is ridiculous.
Yeah,
his back is weak. That's the problem.
There we go. Back shot. So, I didn't think his rear double was that bad. I think he stacks up well, but I think where he's really deficient, you see it in the rear lat spread.
You know what, though? There's other pictures that I saw from the back double, and if you're a real clear, up-close back double picture, you could tell his back is weak.
Okay. I mean, we all agree, right, that his lower body is just a couple years ahead of his upper, whereas, both Angel and Nat have very good balance. Their physiques, upper and lower. Kyle, what do you think a guy like this needs to do to improve and like win a show in the 212s?
Hire me. No.
Shameless plug.
I think. Well, how old is this gentleman?
He looks pretty young. I think he's probably
pretty young.
27 to 31, let's say.
So I think that's where you kind of just assess, like, okay, what have I been doing? Because obviously he can put on muscle. He's top 3, right? So we're nitpicking in terms of, hey, this guy's very good. It's just a matter of, do I think conditioning-wise, can he be a little bit better? Yeah, probably. So I don't know how much of that is the diet. Do they wait to the last second? Are they worried about losing muscle? In his off-season, how heavy does he get? Is he holding the tissue, or is he just dieting it right off? For all I know, there are some people that they like to be conservative in the off-season. They don't really take much until prep time. So something like that, I think you assess the exercises, and then in terms of prep, when do we start pushing the gas? Maybe we need to be a little leaner when we start prep, or we need to be ready a few weeks out. That's what I think it comes down to, but obviously he's trying to bring up the frequency, potentially, of the back training. I don't know, maybe he can't get into certain shots, like his external rotation. Those are all things that are unknown to me, at least.
That came to mind looking at that rear lat spread in particular. It looks like he wasn't driving his elbows forward enough, and he just wasn't spreading the scapula.
I think a lot of people do make that mistake, though. They don't open up enough. And it's funny, just recently, again, to Kyle, there's a video of Nick Walker when he was hitting his lat spread. So it was a very, very clear, like, kind of diagonal video where it shows Nick rolls his shoulders all the way forward, but then when he goes to lean back, those shoulders never come backwards again. He stays wide. A lot of people will open up, and then they bring their shoulders back when they go to lift their chest and lean back. I'm like, you're losing width. You don't do that. So the video I have of Nick is just like that perfect angle where you can see once his shoulders come all the way forward, they don't move a millimeter back. The back movement comes from his waist.
Mm-hmm. I think why people drop those shoulders or bring them back, you do get more detail. You lose width, you get detail, but this is a width shot. That's what people kind of forget, right? Just like a back double. Yes, detail's important, but at the same time, if you're not opening your lats, we all know what that looks like. It doesn't look right? You're pinching your scap.
Yeah, you can always tell when a guy is like doing any type of squeezing in his rear lat spread instead of just straight spreading. You're not hitting that right. You're giving up inches in terms of that width and that taper. So, all right, let's move on. Quickly go over classic, what we saw here. I'm going to pull up some pictures of the top, the first call out.
The top 2 was closer than I expected it to be because we know how good Mike is, right? The Bull.
Yeah.
And, he's just Mr. Consistency. He's always, like, in absolutely insane condition. Like, don't get on stage with him unless you're going to be in insane condition because you're not going to do well. But this guy next to him was in pretty damn good condition and had great shape, too. And he looks very young. Yeah,
his name is Luca Reger. I believe he might be from Germany or Italy. I had it written down, but I accidentally deleted it. So, Michael won, obviously. Luca got second. Richard Nagy got third. Khalid El Nagawi, I'm going to butcher that, I'm sorry, my friend, got fourth. And then Ahmed Khalifa got fifth place. But we have your 4 guys here. One thing I want to say about Mike is I think he's found the right system for not coming in over-dieted as weird, like we all like to see that freaky, crazy, like out-of-this-world conditioning. I remember his glutes were just like, I don't even know how to describe it, just crazy peeled. But he was never, he'd win a show, but then like against another top guy, he'd get second, third, or fourth. And I think he's figured out a system of the right blend or the right balance of conditioning versus fullness. And he looks bigger than he ever has.
Well, another thing is, I've talked to him, and I know that he had digestive issues. So that could be another thing to consider is maybe he just fixed the digestive issues.
Okay.
Yeah, look at this shot. Look at the guy next to him. Like, that guy is hanging with him,
I'd say the other guy, if he changes his leg stance a little bit, might have a slightly better back shot. He's more aesthetically built than Michael is. But, what do you see, Kyle? What do you think?
So Luca, he's 23.
He's 23?
Yep, 23 years of age. Very, very good physique, well ahead of his years.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of young guys in Classic that sometimes we don't know how they're so young and look so good, but here's another prime example. So I think what he's doing, he just needs some more time, right? I can see if he continues to keep his head down, not rush and try to blow out his waist because he's got a good shape to him, but it's Classic. So if you ruin your lines, that's going to mess up a lot. Can he improve the back pose, as you mentioned? I think if he spaced his feet, arguably, he might take that pose to a degree, depending on how he hits it, though I think his back isn't as muscular, especially you can see those erectors in mid-back a little bit, right? I think it's just a matter of time for him. You know, put more time in and you'll be perfectly fine. But obviously his glutes remind me of like a Lunsford, stuff like that, in terms of they're always very sharp. So take that away, where sometimes people look at it and they go, how didn't he win this pose? Well, let's look at the back, right? Look at the rest of the muscle in the back double. It's not just a glute shot. So play to his strengths, I think.
To Kyle's point about the waist, bring up that front shot again, the ab and thigh.
Yeah. Oh, ab and thigh?
Yeah, so Kyle's point about protecting the waist is going to be very important, and it's going to be unique. It's going to be situational, right? So when you see somebody who has a short waist, so if you could see the distance from his hips to his rib cage is not very far. So he has, quote unquote, a short waist. When those get thicker, it ruins the physique. So some people, if they have a longer waistline, if they have a longer torso, they can get away with adding a little bit of size to it. So like, for example, this guy's going to need a little bit bigger legs, right? He's definitely going to need more quads. But how is he going to approach that? Well, I wouldn't put a bar on his back, because if you start growing his waistline, you're going to destroy his whole physique. Whereas if I had somebody with like a really tiny waist, then I probably would go that route, because that's probably going to be the route that builds the legs the best, but I would opt for the second best option and not destroy his waistline. So like, I wouldn't have him barbell squatting with a waist that's, not, super long, because as Kyle said, if you thicken his waist, it's going to destroy his whole physique.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. Let's look at that front one more time. Yeah, he's got a beautiful waistline.
Yeah, and how he hits his front double versus ab and thigh, if you look at that right leg, you can see obviously he sits into the hip a little bit, so you get that entire, the quad insertion down from his hip flexor. You can see it's flexed versus the ab and thigh. He doesn't hit it as clean. So again, he's got beautiful lines.
Yeah, I would say he could actually sit into his hips a little bit more, into that hip a little bit more, and make it even more aesthetic. Kind of like, you see how Michael's hitting it? Mm-hmm. I would say if he tried a shot like Michael's, it would even expose his waist as being smaller than all these guys up there, I think, in proportion to his quads and his shoulders.
Yeah.
But yeah, he definitely needs more legs in general. Okay, cool. All right. And then very briefly, we are going to go over Phil's favorite division, men's physique.
Yeah, well, I actually wanted to cover this one because, I saw something in the comparisons that could probably help out the viewers. As far as posing and what one guy's doing versus what the other guy's doing, and a little struggle that's going on in a correction that can help it, So, like, anybody watching this that competes in men's physique, or if you have friends that compete in men's physique, this can probably help you out. So, if we look at this picture right here, right? So I apologize, I don't know the names, but the guy on the left, you can see he's more focused on flexing his oblique than he is his abs. So if you look at his abs, they're kind of blurry, right? But if you go and click on a different picture from the front, you can see his abs are very, very deep. So why is that? So what happens is when you go to flex your entire core region, I always thought that you had to choose a spot, right? Like, you're either going to focus on the oblique or you're going to focus on the abs, because it's very hard to bring them both in to the fullest degree. But, funny enough, like, I always love to learn. So I'm always going to text the people or ask people that I think are the best in the division. So I text Ariel. Everybody on here knows him as Cuts on Instagram. And I said, bro, how do you get your guys to bring in both to the fullest degree? Because, like, I'm in the mirror practicing, and like it's just one or the other. And he goes, I tell everybody to flex the very, very bottom of the oblique where it's right next to the abs, and that brings them both in. And I went in the mirror and did it. I'm like, holy shit, he's right. So I think that the way this guy is posing his abs, like, you can see the serratus, the oblique is not in as much as this pose, but his abs are. And in the other one, it was the other way around, because he was preferentially flexing one or the other. And I think that if you can bring them both in, it's going to help you to the fullest degree. But another thing that's going on here that might have played a factor is if you look at 1 and 2, 1 has his elbows a lot higher. So when his elbows are a lot higher, what's that going to do? It's going to shorten that delt to make that delt pop out more and make it rounder, right? So when you have your arms down at your sides versus when your arms are up, your delts are going to be fuller up. So I think that if he brings those elbows up just a little bit more, he's going to make those delts pop more and create more separation, and that's going to help the overall look of the physique. So I think that, the first place guy clearly won, but I think his name was Miroslav Jurek.
Yeah, Jurek. Yeah.
Listen, he looked phenomenal. He looked great. But I think that it could have been closer if the other guy was posing better.
Yeah, just to confirm, it's Miroslav Jurek in first place. Second place was Hussein Karimi. Third was Sad Bing Hashim. Sorry, guys. Fourth was Mahmoud Elgbaz, I think. And last one was Shagud Abdullah. So again, sorry for butchering those names. Just not names that we see very often over here in the United States. So yeah, good points on the men's physique.
Sometimes posing can make the difference when it's close, you know?
Sometimes? Every time. Let's see. There's two other things. We wanted to briefly touch on this weekend's Chicago Pro. The Dubai Pro was not the only pro that happened.
Well, it was
what's
China.
that? Sorry, what did I say?
You said Chicago.
Chicago.
You're living 4 weeks in advance. Give me some
Yeah,
time.
man. Well, dude, I've 4 hours of sleep 3 nights in a row, and then I had a 10-hour drive today. So yeah. Okay, let me pull this up. So this one was basically a two-man show from everything I've seen.
Well, the interesting thing about this is the first guy from China to ever qualify for the Olympia.
I see why. I mean, I
In
can
the
see why he
open.
qualified.
He looked, even from the back, he looked ridiculous.
Do we know who he weighs?
I would guess 240, maybe more.
I thought he weighs more because isn't Andrew Presti's like
big.
He's like 270 on stage, and this guy does not look small to him. He looks thicker, rounder.
But his legs really were the knockout punch here.
His hamstrings are massive.
Now I think this is a night show comparison here. I think he was because I sent you some pictures and a video from the prejudging where he was granite from the back.
Well, hold on, I got something else for us.
But even with the little slipping condition to the night show, he's still far and away winning that show. Yeah, look at that.
Okay, so how does this guy do at the Olympia?
I mean, if they give him a look, and if if he holds his condition, I don't know. I mean, we'd have to see the comparisons, really.
One thing I'll say is
Kyle?
his lats look a little shallow compared to his lower body in the rear double. It's like crazy shot, but
I mean, he's got a couple more weeks of dieting. If
Yeah.
I'm being honest. Muscle's there. I don't think it's enough muscle for the Olympia, where we're talking top 10 and stuff like that. But very impressive physique, to say the least.
yeah. I wondered if maybe he spilled a little bit, like even for prejudging. Because I think that video was his initial routine for prejudging. He looked like yeah, the condition's almost there, but he looked like he maybe went overboard with insulin and
Yeah, it
whatnot.
just looked very kind of watery and smooth almost, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what.
Yeah, I didn't see that. I didn't see that video, honestly. I saw a different one.
Yeah, let me see if I can find some more pics real quick.
How do you think he'll do, Phil, at Olympia?
I mean, I think the back is what's going to hurt him. The back is just not up to Olympia caliber. So I think he's good for. I think he'd be great from the side. I think he'd be pretty strong from the front. I mean, listen, the Olympia is like the Super Bowl, So like, even though he's great, there's guys that are phenomenal.
That's
It's
another.
really
That's
hard.
another beast.
You stick him next to the top 10 guys, he's going to have trouble. He's got to get, like you said, a little bit harder. He's got to get more separated. Like Andrew said, he looks like he hit the insulin a little too hard, and like all his muscles are just so swollen, they're kind of encroached rather than separated. It's
This
like a gym pump look.
I was just going to say, this is like the ultimate gym look that you want to bring on like a crazy chest day, right? Let's look at that back shot you mentioned. Yeah, he still looks a little spilled, and I don't know if this was from prejudging or finals, but, Presti kind of looks like he's got a sheen too, though. And it might just be some of it's lighting and some of the background lighting also kind of interfering. But I got another.
I think what hurts Presti is that his legs don't match his upper body.
Yeah.
And I think he's been working on that a while, so it might be a genetic thing, it might be a training thing. It could be a million things, but I think that he's got to get those legs from the front and back profile up a lot.
I look at Shen from like nipple line up, and you're just like, look how full his pecs and his delts are, even his arms and triceps. Just
He's got a serious pump.
he's got a pump, man. Yeah, okay. Here's a good one that maybe we should discuss. Is there such a thing as over pumping backstage?
Oh yeah,
Talk about it.
Kyle, you could lead this one.
So I mean, you have different bodybuilders, right? You have the Jay Cutlers, someone like Nick. They don't do much pumping, right? I have to encourage Nick to, hey man, get a little bit of a pump, okay? Just get a little bit. Other people, I'm sure, whether it's at the regional level, national level, or pro level, it's an hour before prejudging, and they're pumping away, and it's just like, hey man, you're blowing through your load, your resources are depleting. So when you deplete your resources, you then need to replenish them. And when you start doing that, depending on how you are going about water manipulation, what you were using, you start playing a risk factor, I guess you could say, right? So I always tell people, you can get acclimated, take your shirt off, get acclimated to the temperature backstage. Usually it's a little brisk, so no veins are going to be showing. But once people, I feel like I don't like when people have a mirror backstage at times, because then they look at themselves or they start looking at other people and they look down and they're just like, I don't look ready. I don't have a pump. And they get nervous. They start peeing. Those are signs that, hey, this person's stressing out a little bit. Now they're getting a little watery. So that happens often. So that's my take. Don't pump too early. I'd rather you pump too late, because the reality is you come out for your individual, then you're in comparisons. That's when I want you to be peaked. I don't want you peaked 5 minutes backstage and then you come out on stage and now you're going down. And as we know, when we're talking about the top call-outs, it's not just the first group comparison, not the individual. Then you have call-outs, right? And then they put you to the side and they bring you back out. So you have to last all of that time. So if you come out pumped to the gills, ready to rock, you're going to fade. It's not possible to hold a pump for 25, 30 minutes, you know?
You know who could do that was, and obviously he wasn't the most separated, but Marcus Rule. I feel like he always came out like over pumped, and part of it was some of the stuff he had in his muscles, but just super over pumped, never lost a pump. But then what are you giving up when you're over pumped? You're giving up some of that separation in between the muscle tissue and kind of the aesthetic beauty of the physique, right? And I would almost say Shen here is like really close to doing that. He's right at that point where if he was even a little bit more pumped and a few more carbs in him, it would probably blow his whole lick. So I would say take this look and pull it back like 15% in terms of the pump, and I think we'd see a little more separation, and we might be thinking that his conditioning is a little bit better as well because of that.
There's always going to be an exception to the rule, though. You know, it depends on the person's physique, right? So, like me, for example, I was not a detail guy, so I wanted to be as rounded and full as possible. So like backstage, like I always pumped hard right before stage because that really helped my look. And one of the ones that really blew my mind was Juan Morel. If you guys have ever been backstage with Juan Morel and he's standing there and he's getting oiled and you're like, all right. He pumps like a mother 10, 15 minutes before stage, and he doubles in size. And it's just like, what the hell just happened in front of my eyes? It looked like he put on 20 pounds of muscle. And then he comes out, and you're just like, oh my, like his front delts are like popping up towards his ears, and his chest is sticking out a foot, and like he pumps to high hell, and it really produces his best look. Because again, he's not a detail guy. Why is he going to play towards detail? You know, he was a shape guy. He was a big fullness guy, and he would pump to high hell. So sometimes it does work. You've just got to know your physique and probably have a coach that tells you these things.
I mean, to piggyback off that point, using myself, I'm a tall, lanky guy. I probably should have been a swimmer or a tennis player or volleyball or something. And for me, I had to err on the side of more pump because I'd walk into the venue cold, probably looking more men's physique, you know. But then after I get, a few more carbs in me, a little bit more water and salt, and then start pumping, usually it's like 2 to 3 rounds was my sweet spot. Anything more than that, and it's hard to actually feel the connection when you get on stage and hitting your pose correctly, because that's the other thing. You can overpump to a point where you can't hit your shots correctly, and then it just ruins up your whole look on stage. But then I've also had some guys that's like 1 round of pumping, and then we're just going to do posing while in line, and then we're sending you out there. You don't need anything more than that. And I would assume Nick is one of those types of guys because he's always got a pump. Cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think the main takeaway is I think you can overpump. For sure. Play to your strengths. And then once you have the pump, you have to also remember, a lot of people, I'm sure you guys hear it all the time when the client tries to give you feedback about how they're feeling. Like I always ask, like, hey, how are your contractions? Or as they're pumping, they'll say, oh, I don't feel full. And it's just like, hey, you're not going to feel full like you're in the gym 6 weeks out. Like that shit doesn't exist.
That's
so you have to remember that, especially if you don't have as much water in you and things like that. So once you have a pretty good pump going, pose to keep it, flex your chest a little bit, but don't go on stage out of breath. And maybe that's why some people also sweat, because their heart rate's through the roof because they're pumping 10 seconds before they're supposed to walk out.
Yeah. All right, guys, that's you heard it from us about our backstage pump-up policy, or protocol, I should say. Recap the Dubai Pro as well as a little bit of the China Pro. Thanks a lot for hanging along with us. Please like, subscribe, share, let your friends know about the podcast. We want to keep bringing you the content that you guys want, so let us know what you want. Till next time, we're unracked.